is Dr. Supreet from Department of Commerce, University of Delhi. Today we will be talking about the role of FDI and why should we say that India is a preferred choice as an investment decision. Why India is gaining prominence around the world. So for the same we will be looking into the role of FDI as an investment route and how and where do we stand at the global positioning. Recently, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, he's been to Brunei, right? And that Brunei is a part of our East Act policy. That means wherein we were focusing on to the Asian nations, and the focus is to promote the bilateral relations, to promote the strategic cooperation in the economy. And this deal with the Brunei, it is a landmarking one as it was a major one to enhance our relationships, and we have been in a very strategic collaborations, in a very diplomatic relations with Brunei since it gained independence in January 1984. So this was the first very visit of any Prime Minister to Brunei. And Brunei has got a very geopolitical positioning into the when we talk about with respect to positioning for the as a investment choices. So the recent visit of our Prime Minister has led to various agreements with the Brunei, and the four major agreements were signed with the Brunei in the recent visit, which focused on to boosting the digital telecommunication. Second, it focused on to semiconductor ecosystem. The agreement was morely focused on to boosting the production of semiconductors and to create an ecosystem for the same. It was with respect to health and medicine. It was with respect to education. So four primary deals were signed with Brunei to push the bilateral relations, right? And as I mentioned that this is one of the crucial visit to give impetus to our Act East policy. And Brunei has become a center of prominence because of its geopolitical landscape, as because of Indo-Pacific that region that it has gained significance with. So Brunei is again another point for Brunei is that it has a leverage with respect to energy resources. So Brunei has been a key supplier of crude oil and our natural gas. So with this visit in place, what will happen is now that there is a strategic alliance between India and Brunei, wherein Brunei will be supplying the liquefied natural gas to India. So this actually, this very visit has been a very landmark visit, and especially with respect to Asian nations, wherein our diplomatic relations with Brunei, with these particular agreements after the visit of our Prime Minister, so it will get an impetus, it will be boosted up further. And there is a very critical role of FDI, and that is why we say that all these visits, all these diplomatic relations, it will boost our bilateral ties, and it has a very crucial role in boosting the economic growth, in pushing the positioning of India as a global one, as a prominent place of investment. So today's topic will be more or focusing on to why India should be chose as an investment choice, right? And before we move on to why India should be chosen out as an investment choice, let us just look on to that how the FDI has served as an investment route for India. So total FDI inflows in the country in the last 24 years, if we take into consideration this period of from April 2000 to March 2024, has been USD 990.97 billion. So, and if we just look on to the FDI into just last 10 years, that is a period from 2014 to 24, you can see a great jump into the FDIs, which have been at into 667.4 410. So that means out of that 990 billion deal, FDIs that we have got in the last 24 years, the last decade, that is the last 10 years, have been very crucial in forming India's positioning in the globe. So we have secured 667.410 USD billion. So that's an exponential jump with respect to our FDI's flow, and this actually amounts to your 67% of the FDIs that have flowed into the nation in the last 24 years. So that certainly navigates to us towards this direction, that yes, with respect to positioning India as a global figure, we have been, we have come up with various you could say schemes, various you could say policies that has pushed for the you could say the investment choices when it comes India as a prominent place, right. Further on, when we say that what being the top countries from where the equity inflows has turned up into India in the financial year 23-24. So, Mauritius has gained the top prominent position with a share of 25%. Then comes into picture is your Singapore with 23rd% of your shares, and then USA with 9%, Netherlands 7%, and Japan 6%. So, these are the top 5 countries for which the FDI equity inflows has turned up into India in the financial year 23-24, and Mauritius is one such nation which has been a continuous source of FDI in India for a longer period. So, if we go back to the period 2016-2015, Mauritius has been the top notch, has gained the top notch position with respect to FDIs being channelized into India. And further upon, if we see into that, what being the major sectors in India that have received the foreign direct investments. So, the top 5 sectors that have received the FDI equity inflows during the financial year 23-24 have been your, if we talk about from the services sector, there being finance, there being banking, insurance, and then business outsourcing, research and development, courier services, testing and analysis. So, predominantly if we talk about services, they form the crucial segmentation with the 16% share. Then comes your computers, software and hardware at 15%, trading at 6%, telecommunications again at 6%, and automobile industry holding the 5% share. So, these being the key sectors wherein your FDI equity inflow has been the highest during the financial year 23-24. Further, if we say that okay, that these were the key sectors wherein the majority of your FDI inflow has taken place in the last year, and this being the share that 7% of your FDI has been flowing into the nation during last decade only. So, what being the top states that have received the highest your FDI equity inflows during the period your 23-24? It's the Maharashtra. So, Maharashtra has secured the highest share with respect to your FDI equity inflow. Then it is Karnataka trailing behind with a 22% share. Further on, followed by Gujarat at 17%, Delhi at 13%, and Tamil Nadu at 5%. So, these have been the key states wherein the FDI equity inflow has taken place during the last year. And then too, FDIs we know, they play a very crucial role. They play a crucial role in creating the job employment or job opportunities. It boosts the market, it brings in the revenue into the industry, it provides ample opportunities. Then it sort of also leads to regional development. If we say that XYZ company has invested into India and now it is targeting on coming up with its base into some of the rural areas. So, with that opening of a new unit in that rural area, it will not be just the job opportunities that will be created, it would be the regional development that it will be taking place. So, there will be provision of electricity, there will be provision of water facilities, there will be sanitation facilities, there will be better roads, better infrastructure, better telecommunication services. So, all this should be taken up as a very holistic approach. So, that is why the government is always pushing for the FDIs, so that it can lead to multiple and varied opportunities for the locals and for the domestic market also, because if they bring the FDIs, along with that we are also bringing in the technology, we are also bringing in the technical know-how. So, that is why the key emphasis is on to through the FDIs, there being obviously the major criterion is here, you will get the increase greater number of your revenues, but along with the revenues you will get the technology, you will get the, as I mentioned, the infrastructure, you will get the regional development, regional growth. So, that being the primary benefits of bringing in the greater share of FDIs, right. Now, there being certain sectors that being very prohibited by the government. Now, why they being prohibited is that they being such segments where in the investments by the private players or any investment that being routed from abroad is not entertained, as it is not allowed. For example, your chit funds, for example, your Nidhi company, for example, any lottery system, any gambling, any betting, any production of cigars, right. And there being also certain areas where there is restriction of investment by the private players, be it your atomic energy, be it your railways, right, your defense. So, they are being in certain sectors the government has allowed for consolidated FDIs, but also subject to the upper threshold, right. So, that shows us this list actually gives us the purview of the FDIs, that what being the key areas wherein they can flow into and what being the very limited sectors, what being the prohibited sectors of there being a threshold or capping for the same. So, that is kept into the mind, that these sectors being into the prohibited segments, keeping into mind the relevance of the products or the categorization of the products, the very nature of the products for which they being utilized. So, that is why they being put up for the prohibited segmentation, right. Now, when we say that why India should be chosen up as an investment decision. So, let us just quickly recapitulate all the policies that have been taken up by the government during the past decade, because there being a major change into the foreign trade policies, we been pushing for the services sector, we been focusing to make India as a manufacturing hub, we been focusing on to other parts of the world and even changing our top market destinations. So, we are sort of following is a multi-thronged approach wherein we are trying to connect to greater markets, not just get limited to US, UK or Germany, let us say, or Japan, but we are diversifying into other regions. We are boosting our bilateral trade as being clarified through this very case of your India and Brunei, wherein this was one of the major deals and has been the center of focus recently, because this is the very first time any Prime Minister from India they have visited Brunei since it gained independence in 84. So, and also the, as I mentioned, that Brunei is a very, has got a very geopolitical landscape wherein it is into the center because of its Indo-Pacific region, and then to Brunei being the key supplier of energy resources, be it your crude oil or liquefied natural gases. Then with these 4 agreements that we have recently concluded with the Brunei, so they have further boosted the the strategic alliances and deals like such. It's not just one of the deals that happened recently. We had a deal with Ukraine, we had various other deals in the pipeline, and there are various other visits that are yet to be been conducted. So they hold a very crucial prominence, and they also serve as centering India as a global figure. So when we talk about that, why India should be chosen as an investment choice, there are n number of factors, and one by one we will be talking about them in depth, which will gives us better insights with our statistical figures that will boost the case up. Now, the total FDI inflows in the country in the financial year, as I mentioned, has been your USD 990 billion, right? Out of it, 67% has been covered in the last one decade. Now, adding up onto the same is your comprehensive packages, that being just at around your USD 270 billion under your this self reliant India scheme, which talks about the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So this is equivalent to your India's 10% of GDP, right? So these packages, why these packages being boosted up, why the government is key on bringing up the schemes like Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, because it talks about that now we have to position ourselves with respect to manufacturing also. We have been primarily an agrarian economy, predominantly one, and with a number of strategies in place, with policies in place, with our foreign trade policy, we are envisioning about making India as a manufacturing hub, so that we also become sort of self reliant when it comes to manufacturing segment also, right. So if we go by the statistics, India has witnessed an estimated GDP growth of 8.2% in 23 and 24, right. And so we are growing, and also as per the recent estimates that being released by the IMF, we have been projected for a growth of somehow of your 7% for the coming year, which is even in certain cases is much the targets being that has been projected for India is much higher as compared to various other developed nations. So it actually indicates the India being taking the global positioning and emerging. It's just like an emerging economy with such a largest ever adolescent and youth population. So largest ever adolescent and youth population, when we say, so it actually helps them reaping the benefits of demographic dividend. So it will India is currently reaping the benefit of having the youngest population in the world, and it will continue to have the youngest population in the world till 2030, as being indicated by the UN Population Fund. So the data set that being released from the same, that indicates that yes, India too has the potential to to gain the benefits out of its adolescent and youth population. So this youth population is obviously the demographic dividend that we have at our disposal, and this is what we are going to continue till at least till 2030, right. Plus furthermore, it is also expected that by 2030 and around 42% of India's population would be urbanized. So way back in 2011, there were only 31% of people that being urbanized. So by this 2030, it is expected that the ratio will jump to your 42%. Now when we say that it will jump to 42%, the other what being the factors which being responsible for its jump is that there being creation of smart cities, there being creation of your gift cities. So the government is not just talking about developing the major metro cities, rather the government is also talking about for the betterment, for the development of your small towns, making them as the hubs. For example, Sikkim is emerging as an hub for the organic food production. So the government is giving impetus with the help of their infrastructure, with the help of finances, with the help of creating such an ecosystem that will help out the people in creating such a structure whereby they can get best of the resources at their disposal, be they being into any part of the world, right. So, these creation of small towns, creation of these gift cities, so they being created for the purpose of giving impetus to other regions also, and they should also be taken up into this growth, right. And further on, Ministry of Youth and Affairs and Sports have also signed a statement of intent with Yuva, and that statement of intent with Yuva and UNICEF, it is meant to strengthen and to mobilize the 1 crore youth volunteers so that they can achieve the goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, Atmanirbhar Bharat, this goal can be only achieved through if we have, as we mentioned, the youth, the young population, which is our demographic dividend at our disposal, and that population, that young population is doing what is, it is taking you are just sort of grooming them towards this vision of mobilizing them and making them self-reliant. That is, they need not to be dependent on to others, either through the skills that they possess, either through the knowledge that they possess. They will get an opportunity into the market whereby they will be able to attain this goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that they will be self-reliant, positioning themselves to in a much stronger figure. Next is that another factor that makes the positioning of India as a very preferred choice and making it as a stronger choice as an investment decision is your this corridor program. Now, we do have this National Industrial Corridor program, the one which run from Delhi to to Bengal, and you can see the various northwest, east corridors. Now, why these corridors being boosted up is that these corridors will sort of lead to economical logistical efficiency. It will help us cut down onto the logistical cost, because presently we are staggering at a double digit logistical cost, which is there somehow of your 12 to 13% of GDP, and the government's vision is to do what is, it is to dip it down to a single digit figure under your NLP 2022, which talks about that the NLP cost, your logistical cost will be cut down to your a single digit figure of 7 to 8%, and that very value can be realized only if we have these, for the purpose the government has created these industrial corridors. Now, what being the purpose of these industrial corridors? It will boost the time efficiency, it will cut down onto the cost, it will save onto your times, it will make sure the right product reaches to the right person in the right form at the right time. So, all that utilities will be ensured, your trade utilities will be ensured if these industrial corridors are there in place. So, that is what is a long run strategic vision of the government, by which the government is focusing on to creating a strategic plan which will focus on to creating all these corridors, all these dedicated freight corridors. The purpose will be what is to, along with the trade, this multimodal transportation system, this cost efficiency is attained, right. So, we will be talking more about this industrial corridors, dedicated freight corridors, and the various other facts that play a crucial role in positioning India as an investment choice. So, thank you.